Shamel Aboul Fadl is a distinguished Egyptian entrepreneur who has played a key role in transforming Egypt's investment landscape. Aboul Fadl is the founder and chairman of the financial services firm Compass Capital, one of Egypt's leading private equity firms. Under his leadership, Compass has built a diverse portfolio across various sectors, including real estate, pharmaceuticals, and financial services. Aboul Fadl grew up in Alexandria before moving to Cairo, where he earned a Bachelor of Science in Construction Engineering from the American University in Cairo. He later obtained an MBA from the prestigious Wharton School of Business, and in 1999 he continued his professional journey at the Mansour and Maghrabi Investment and Development Company. In 2003, Aboul Fadl moved to Switzerland to serve as vice president at Citigroup in Geneva. Aboul Fadl then co-founded Paragon Asset Management in Geneva in 2005, which grew to manage $950 million in assets. Upon returning to Egypt in 2007, Aboul Fadl served as managing partner at Pharaoh's Holding and helped transform it into a fully fledged investment bank. In 2010, Aboul Fadl left Pharaoh's to found his own investment company, Compass Capital. The firm's first acquisition in 2011 was Ramida Pharmaceuticals, a then struggling company that Compass successfully turned around and listed on the Egyptian Stock Exchange. Ramida is now one of Egypt's leading pharmaceutical companies. Compass then expanded into other sectors, completing several transactions and acquiring a significant stake in Beltone in 2012, which it sold in 2016. In 2017, Compass backed management in the acquisition of CI Capital, which went public in 2018. Compass also acquired Bonyan in 2018, a struggling real estate investment company that owned the award-winning mall Designopolis. Aboul Fadl transformed the mall into Walk of Cairo, an open-air, family-friendly lifestyle destination with entertainment, dining, shopping, and office spaces. Bonyan went on to acquire 9 office buildings throughout Cairo and is now preparing to go public, in line with Compass's long-standing vision of listing its companies. Through his strategic vision and bold moves, Shamel Aboul Fadl is one of Egypt's most respected entrepreneurs with a commitment to excellence that continues to leave its mark. Shamel, it's such an honor. You fit the description of an enigma. We know your name, but we don't know the mystery of all the businesses that you do. فالنهارده طبعا هنتعلم كتير, we're very excited. Let's start at the very beginning. Tell me about your passions growing up. Were you one of the kind of people that you knew what you wanted to do, or did it develop over time?
I've always been curious to learn. I've always had a passion for that. Throughout my school and my university, I was always a curious individual and a good student. Then initially when I was growing up, I always thought I wanted to be an engineer because my family are all architects. My father's an architect, my sister, my brother. I kind of went into that path thinking this is what I wanted to do. And this is the degree I did initially. But I always thought that this isn't the end game. I wanted to do something that was more entrepreneurial, something that was more business related, and hence the decision to go and do an MBA. I didn't have a clear path of what I wanted to do from day one.
But when you did the MBA, you kind of, at that point you knew?
Yes.
Okay.
When I did it, it was an eye-opener. I got to know things that I didn't know existed. A very interesting time in my life, and it was a very humbling experience. When you go there, you compete with a totally different group of people that are 10 times better than you and smarter and quicker and so on. So it just showed me something I had never experienced before.
What drew you for your first opportunity after the MBA?
I did several opportunities prior to doing my MBA, and there were opportunities that kind of came my way and I wanted to explore. I didn't know what I wanted to do. After I did my MBA, I started getting more into the framework of entrepreneurship, studied finance and entrepreneurship. So it got me in that mindset and kind of starting companies, doing new things and so forth. When I came back, I did do an entrepreneurial venture that led me to work my first job post-MBA.
And before that, your experience was more investment banking?
Prior to going to business school, it wasn't. Because of my degree in engineering, it was more related to, I started entrepreneurial business, but it was not related to investment banking.
Okay, so that was all post-MBA?
Exactly.
Mansour Maghrabi was the first position?
Exactly. When I came back from my MBA in the States, I had an idea of the business I wanted to do. When I spoke to Yasmine, he said that he'd like to invest in the business, but why don't you come work for us also? That's what I did.
What was the first business that he invested in with you?
Started off as direct consumer business where based out of Amazon. That was the original idea. But then the internet was not as big as it is today.
Yeah.
And the idea was to do it over the phone. And then that idea developed into doing pharmacy chain. It's called Care. And we actually started that business.
Interesting. The journey to Compass, were there any other strategic points along the way?
After Mansour Maghrabi in 2003, I decided I wanted to get more exposure internationally. And I moved to Switzerland. And I stayed there for like 5 years or so. Initially started working with Citigroup there. And then started independent asset management in Switzerland called Paragon. And that was probably like the fourth business I had founded. And started doing that before coming back to Egypt in 2007.
Tell us the experience of working abroad. How different was it? How did it shape you in the way you do business today?
The challenges are very different than the challenges you get exposed to in Egypt. I think it's much more structured environment. Once you identify the opportunity you want to go after, everything else falls in place. There aren't that many hiccups in what you need to do.
Yeah.
And it's a very stable environment. I think that would be the fundamental difference.
Did you find it more competitive or more competitive here in Egypt?
Egypt is a different challenge. It's not necessarily the competitiveness. I think it's a different challenge in working through all the challenges that you face, all the obstacles that come your way and sifting through
Unexpected obstacles. Why didn't you stay in Switzerland? What made you come back?
I really enjoy being in Egypt. When I had the opportunity to do my graduate studies and spend 2 years in the States, I wanted to come back to Egypt. After I spent 5 in Switzerland, I wanted to come back to Egypt. I enjoy living here. I enjoy being in Egypt. I enjoy the opportunities Egypt presents. And I really want my children to grow up in Egypt.
Yeah.
Definitely, I always had a bias.
So that was an easy decision to come back?
It was.
Okay. So then when you came back from Geneva, is that when you started Compass?
No, actually when I came back from Geneva, we were working with a company called Pharos at the time.
Yes.
And we were working on a transaction between Paragon and Pharos. And then my interest was to always do investments that were Egypt-centric. So when we had that opportunity, I came back to Egypt, partnered up with the team of Pharos, Alwi Taimur and Dr. Mohammed Taimur and so forth, and worked on building that franchise with the existing team until exiting in 2010 to start Compass.
Okay, so at that point you knew you wanted to be on your own.
I wanted to create a company that embodies what I enjoy doing. A company that started off with a small team, one focus on innovating and creating value for the shareholders rather than focusing on politics or focusing on other metrics that you'd find in other companies. Lots of companies I've been exposed to, Citigroup and so many of the others, there's a lot of politics involved in the decision-making process.
Yeah, so in Compass you're able to stay away from that.
We work very hard to stay away from it. To the extent started Compass, we started in a way that nobody had titles on their business cards. There's no segregation. It's a very flat structure. Everybody has a voice. Everybody has the ability to challenge an idea or challenge a concept. All voices are heard, and decisions, we can argue, we can disagree, we can do whatever we want. Decisions, they're not driven by anything other than the interest to grow rather than the interest of politics.
Yeah. And is that your leadership style? You take everybody's opinions, or is it more a hierarchical structure?
The leadership style is consensus building. You want to hear everybody's voice, and you want to have everybody have the ability to share their opinion, even if they're not your opinion. You want to hear everybody's voice, and you want to weigh all those pros and cons. But at the end, once you take a decision, you move forward. There's a saying, agree and commit, disagree and commit. It doesn't matter if we agreed or not, but you need to commit and move forward.
Yeah. Would you say you're a fast decision maker?
Yes.
They say that's always a sign of success, how quickly you make decisions.
It's interesting because decide is Latin for killing the other option.
Oh, really? Okay. So you start Compass, and what was the vision? What did you start to focus on with Compass? Which investments?
2010 started Compass. It was a very different world. At the time, there was a lot of big boys operating in Egypt in that space, focusing on private equity transactions and focusing on investing in different companies. When we started, the first transaction we did was a pharmaceutical company. It's a funny story because 2010, pharma is a hot asset class. Everyone wants to be in pharma. Everybody likes healthcare and wants to invest there. And this investment comes to us. We're a startup. It's like, why would it come to us? There must be something wrong.
Was it a personal connection?
No, not at all.
Okay.
The strange thing is, كل الناس وقالنا احنا. There's something unusual to you.
Yeah.
And the owner, coincidentally, is a bank in Bahrain called Shamel Bank, which is like,
oh,
what
wow.
are the odds?
Okay,
So it kind of seems fishier. We got that opportunity and we looked at it and we decided to go and invest in it. And the challenge was raising money in that environment because everybody's second guessing. Why is it that you're the guys looking at it while nobody else doing that deal? The second thing is انتوا ايش فهمكم في pharmaceutical, and it's a turnaround, which makes it a bit more challenging.
Challenging, of course.
So it was very challenging to kind of get everybody aligned, and this is the first deal we're doing and so forth. And we did the transaction on the 19th of January.
Oh my God.
19th of January دي كانت آخر عملية تتنفذ في البورصة، مش كده تنفذيها في البورصة قبل ما البورصة تقفل. وبعد كده طبعا حصل الدربكة بتاعت 25 يناير و the rest is history يعني. ف you can imagine بقى ستارت اب، احنا بالنسبة لنا كامبس مستثمرة في difficult asset اللي هي pharmaceutical, very regulated, an asset that never made money في الثورة. You can imagine.
Yeah, so how did you manage that? Also, as a new business dealing with the revolution, that must have been a huge challenge.
When we look at opportunities, we usually put the blueprint of what we want to do with that opportunity. فلما حصلت الثورة, we decided this is a strategic business, healthcare, pharmaceutical. It's going to continue being there, irrespective of اللي بيحصل في مصر. And we looked at it from the perspective of this is an opportunity. We wanted to build a strong team. Wanted to start growing the business. We'll take advantage of the fact that a lot of other companies are downsizing. They're letting go of very talented individuals. Nobody's expanding, so you can always do that at a much better cost structure. And that's what happened.
So it was good for the business, actually.
I believe it was.
Okay, interesting.
And when we took it in stride, kept our head down, focused on the business, decided to double down on our expansion plans, then we grew the business very significantly over that time. And we gained market share and grew it.
Top,
and
great.
Then we took it public in 2019.
Okay, that's really interesting. And did that encourage you to do more investments in pharma?
Rameda itself, we chose a very different approach in terms of expanding the business. And apart from the regular expansion, which is through like you create your own adwaya and you register them and sell them, we started acquiring other pharmaceutical products, molecules. And we did acquisitions, maybe now we've done like 40 plus acquisitions of molecules that are available in the Egyptian market. We gained market share and grew it much quicker. But instead of doing other pharmaceutical companies, we use this as a platform to acquire molecules.
Are there any names that we would recognize?
The latest acquisition we did was Sugarlo, which is a diabetes medicine. This was the largest acquisition we did. We did like maybe a few months ago.
That must be a great business, sustainable, growing every year.
Actually, it is.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Okay. But then Compass moves.
After that, we did several other transactions in non-banking financial services and investment banking. We did one for Belton, which when we acquired a significant stake there and sold it in 2016. We did another transaction when CIB was selling CI Capital, and that went public in 2018. And then 2018, we acquired a business of a company called Bonyan. We acquired it from Citadel, another private equity. And at the time, they had a single asset that I've always admired. It was at the time called Designopolis.
Yes, of course. Yes, we all know and love Designopolis.
Exactly,
yes,
exactly. That was always an asset I admired. And we had the opportunity to acquire that. And then we've grown Bonyan from being a single asset to today we have 10 assets.
So what are the other assets of Bonyan? Because we all know
Walk of Cairo.
Walk of Cairo, which is the former Designopolis, correct?
Exactly.
So what other assets would we know around Egypt?
We have 8 buildings in Tajamma. So it's mainly that.
And those are office buildings?
Yeah. The business of Bonyan, it's a very interesting model. It's a model that's available most developed markets. And it's the model very different than that of developers. In the sense that we don't buy land and build and then start selling the units. The Bonyan model is that we buy assets that are existing and we own them and lease them. So we don't build, we acquire and lease the businesses. So it's a business that's mainstream, and that's how people usually invest in real estate globally.
Yes.
It's not what happens in Egypt, حد يشتري 2-3 units that he owns in order to get exposure to real estate. That's not how people invest. Usually people invest in paper form, which is companies like Bonyan.
Do you feel this model works better in Egypt, especially during these challenging times?
The benefit of this model is because you own the asset. The issues اللي هي زي inflation, المشاكل اللي بتحصل عندنا, you benefit from it.
Interesting.
Because you own the asset. For when there's inflation, assets are comparable. Assets go up in value. But they benefit. Inflation hits ناس زي developers. They sold
at a low price, and now
prices,
it's
and now they have to build at more expensive price. it eats up in their margin.
Yeah.
It benefits this and goes against
At
that.
any stage, is the plan to sell the investments?
No,
It's just, it will remain this
we
model.
hold and we make money off the appreciation, the assets we chose, and of course the rental values and the continuous acquisitions of similar assets. But we only sell when we want to reposition the portfolio.
The big news is, of course, that Bonyan is going to be listed publicly.
Yes.
So tell us what led you to this decision.
When we were looking at the business that we invest in, ultimately the goal is to have it listed, to create this liquidity event in order to democratize that asset and have more people have the ability to invest in it. But this is not the first time we do that. Throughout the company's history, this is the fourth
That's
time.
always the end goal.
That's always the end goal. This is a product that is very suited for this market, and people, the Egyptians really love investing in real estate.
Yeah.
But this is a more efficient way to do it. It's a very suited environment for a product like that, and hence the reason that we want to take it to market.
So for the average investor, it's a more guaranteed investment,
I wouldn't ever call it investment guaranteed in any form. Yes.
but less risky than
Less risky,
than
yes.
other investments.
Definitely. If you believe that real estate is a store of value, which it is, it's an inflation hedge, and it's beneficial over the long term, it's more efficient to do it in a paper format than in a physical format.
Yeah.
For multiple reasons.
There are other companies in Egypt using this format that you're using?
Currently, no. We're the only ones that are doing it on the office space as a company. نشتري office and retail assets and lease them out. There are definitely families that do it, individual families that have buildings themselves. And a lot of Egyptians own single units. At this scale and this format,
Okay, so this is something that makes you unique in Egypt.
I believe so.
Okay. Obviously, with the public listing, the company is going to grow. How do you want to see the company grow after that?
We do have a first mover advantage. And this is a model that's a relatively simple model. It's not easily replicable except if you have the scale that allows you to do that.
And the investment
Bizarre.
funds.
Plans are, and we see that there is a huge opportunity for us to continue doing what we do now, to continue acquiring buildings, take advantage of the first mover advantage that we have, and continuously grow the company. We have a lot of opportunities that are not available in other industries. Your question that you asked earlier, I'm going to tell you about pharma, and like you do other investments in pharma. There are not that many opportunities to acquire.
Yeah,
If we live in a concrete jungle, there's huge opportunities of other buildings to acquire, especially with a focus on commercial. So we see this as a business that has a huge runway for growth.
So obviously, once you go public, you'll be able
To continue doing what we're doing.
to grow much faster.
Faster,
Okay,
exactly.
so that's what
That's the
we're
plan.
going to look out for. So let's talk in general about the real estate market in Egypt. As you said, the biggest thriving sector for Masr, and everybody's interested in investment. How do you see this sector moving forward? And what's your advice for people who are investing in real estate?
We're very driven by numbers. When we looked at real estate, you have to compare real estate as an asset class compared to other asset classes. So you compare it to bonds, you compare it to equities, you compare it to gold, and so on and so forth. Throughout the year, Egypt, real estate has always outperformed other asset classes. It's always been the top performer. If you look at real estate in specific, you have to dissect it. And real estate is not one group. It's divided by geography, it's divided by type, لو هي residential, لو هي commercial, لو هي retail. So you have to look within that, where are there pockets of value? We continue to see on the commercial side, there is value there. There's going to continue
More than the residential.
and the reason being, and there's a supply-demand gap, and there's not that much availability for that grade of office building.
Which is
The
super
grade
modern, high-tech.
But there continues to be demand on that front. A lot of the real estate is sold strata. بمعنى مثلا حد عنده مبنى بيكسروا بيبيعوا small offices. When somebody multinational tenants want to rent, they don't want to rent.
They want the whole building.
They want the whole building.
Yeah.
Or they want the whole floor. But there's not that much availability of that. You have to always look at real estate on a more minute scale rather than real estate at large.
So as your expertise is investing in Cairo, which areas do you see as the most strategic?
When we look to invest, we look at the entire market to see where is best value for money. One of the very important factors is where do the tenants want to be. Most of the tenants that we go after, multinationals mainly, they want to be in either East or West Cairo. Mainly East Cairo now is hotter than West. Within those regions, we look at ahsan assets to acquire.
One of the challenges, at least for foreign investment, has always been if you invest in real estate or you invest in Egyptian companies in general, how do you get your money out? Do you feel this problem has been addressed? Is it now easier to attract foreign investment?
I believe this problem has never been the main problem of Egypt. It's been the most recent problem. المشكلة بتاعت repatriating your funds has been an issue for the last few years. You've had the black market on the FX. Before that, you didn't have a problem to bring in money or bring out money.
But since the revolution, wouldn't you say?
Even post that, it wasn't really as big a deal as it was the last few years. Now, with the stabilizing of the currency and it's more easily traded, this is going to become less of an issue. And people have more flexibility in terms of investing in Egypt and taking their money out.
And is that something you're interested in, getting more foreign investment?
Definitely, it never hurts to have more foreign. They're longer term in nature. There are a different group of investors that are buying in. Even without the foreign investors, there is a thriving market for Egyptians as it stands.
Yeah, you don't, in this sector, you don't need the foreign investors as much.
The easiest way to look at it, look at all the developers. I know it's a different business model. Just look at all the sales that they've been doing over the course of the last few years. They haven't been foreigners buying.
But you think of those as residential, so...
No, I understand.
Yeah.
Some of the investors that invest in residential, they're not investing.
They're just
to live.
investment, yeah.
It's not for utility.
Yeah.
They're investing because they want to be exposed to real estate because of the benefits of real estate. For those individuals that are not investing to live in, Bonyan would be a suitable option to consider.
Let's switch gears a little bit. As a successful serial entrepreneur that's been in so many different sectors, in an unpredictable and unstable market, at least over the last 2 decades in Egypt, how have you survived all the challenges you faced, especially going into sectors where you didn't have experience? You must be very quick to learn the new challenges of each sector, correct?
You hit the nail on the head. Learning is a huge part of the equation. You need to look at all opportunities, really study it well, understand it, ask around a lot. And then from that, you'll really learn what needs to be done, what's necessary to derive value from it. The more important thing is there's always opportunity in chaos. And you always have to look at the positive side to it. And you always have to identify what opportunities would flourish in an environment like that. You need to be investing in businesses that have tailwinds themselves. The tailwinds that would work in environments that are not as predictable as other markets. With all the uncertainty that you have, it creates the opportunity to invest in businesses that benefit from that. You have a high inflationary environment. If you invest in real estate, owning it, you benefit from that. That's the business you want to be in. If you invest in pharma, it doesn't have the same dynamics. It's an industry that is going to continue to grow even in challenging circumstances. You invest in non-banking financial services, you have a huge unbanked community that's going to need banking services. That's the tailwinds in the business. And preferably a business that doesn't have much competition.
Which are getting fewer and fewer right now.
If you look enough, you'll find businesses that are have decent margins and are not very competitive.
For a young entrepreneur, the next generation, what would you advise them? Especially now, if you raise investment, you don't know what that investment is going to be worth in 2 years. If the pound devalues again, or if anything else happens in the region, do you still believe that being an entrepreneur in Egypt at this time is a good decision, or is it safer to work for a big multinational? Like, what would you tell your children?
They should be entrepreneurs. I'd advise them to be criteria that you need to be looking at when you're looking to invest. And you need to be humble, or you need to be passionate about it. You need to look at businesses that have tailwinds themselves, preferably businesses that are asset-backed. And you don't have to be doing businesses that are completely out of the box in order to be successful. You can be doing regular brick-and-mortar businesses, but doing them better than the next guy. That's the advice I'd give the younger generation, because there's a tendency today that everything needs to be breaking the mold, everything needs to be outside the box, everything needs to be tech.
They've forgotten about all the other businesses.
And you'd be shocked. And a lot of the businesses that have been very successful in Egypt were very basic industries. So you don't have to be the guy that comes up with the next Uber. The main criteria, if I were giving advice, it would be they need to be humble and keep their head down. Because a lot of entrepreneurs I see today, they're kind of embracing the idea that failure is acceptable, that you need to fail to succeed. And all these concepts are not necessarily mainstream concepts.
You don't believe in failure.
You don't have to fail to succeed.
The new spin is that's part of the journey. You're learning, you're growing.
True, but it's a convenient way to not do your homework. Definitely, it's very liberating when you think of it that way. If you think failure is acceptable, it's very liberating in that sense. It also gives you an opportunity to be complacent.
It's a very difficult thing, no matter. I think people try to spin it, but I'm sure at the time when somebody's failing in their business, especially if you're passionate about it, it must be heartbreaking.
Definitely have businesses that were more challenging than others. I'm saying it's okay to fail. It's different when you fail, it's one thing. It's different going in, accepting that failure is part of the process. It's a very different approach.
100%.
I'm not saying that you shouldn't fail.
You shouldn't almost be expecting it as a very possible
بالضبط.
outcome.
That's what I'm saying.
And let's talk about, obviously, you must work extremely hard. You've built such a huge business. How does that affect your work-life balance? Do you feel that you're managing to do that correctly? We know you walk to work, so you've already saved a lot of time in your life by doing that.
I really enjoy walking. Definitely walk to work and walk back home. So I also wake up early in the morning and walk with my dog.
Okay, are you part of the 5 a.m. club?
No, I wish I was. I wake up at 6:30.
Okay, very, very close, Yani. Okay.
So I walk my dog usually around 7, and then I go to the gym at around 8,
Until?
9.
And then you're in the office.
Then I'm back.
Okay, and what happens after office hours?
I enjoy spending time with the family. I enjoy spending time with my wife and kids, with my mother. That's what I really enjoy spending my day after work.
Do you work late, or are you very disciplined on what time you leave the office?
I wouldn't say I work very late. I'd leave the office around 6 or something. I'm usually available to do anything at home. I work also remotely, and if after hours I'm available to work. I don't shut off.
Getting into the Wharton School of Business, which is considered the top, or at least one of the top 3 MBAs in the world, that must have been a big challenge. Was that like a goal that you had and you worked towards?
It was my top school I wanted to get into. At the time, I was accepted to go to LBS on a scholarship, and I let go of that to do Wharton. It was definitely on my top list to get into. I probably slipped through the cracks.
Think not. But as you said, it was life-changing.
It was amazing for me. Before that, I was a good student all my life, undergraduate in school. But there was super humbling. You deal with people that are super smart, people that are off the charts in terms of their IQ, and it was a super humbling experience that put things in perspective.
And that was probably also your first time living abroad as an adult.
Exactly. I had just gotten married. Our firstborn was born that year, and this was the first time I live as an adult.
And you moved the whole family?
The whole family there.
Okay, so that must have been a nice experience for the family
No
too.
doubt.
So let's just talk about the future goals business-wise, inside and outside of Compass. Where do you see yourself in the next 10, 20, 30 years?
I have no idea. I'm hoping to be starting a program next month in the States for exactly that answer.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, you're going to go back to studying?
Yeah. I'm doing a program, and that program is we do 3 weeks on campus, and then within the next 24 months, we do 2 more 3-week on campus.
Okay.
I'm really excited about that.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah, last time I was a student was 97.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to go back to school.
Yeah.
And just kind of learn what's next.
Okay, that's really exciting. Okay, so now we're at the Enigma questionnaire. It's short questions that you answer in short ways. So the first one is, which 5 words best describe you?
Curious to learn, decisive, creative, passionate with perseverance.
We know that you're an animal lover. So if you were an animal, which animal would you be?
I think I'd be a dog.
How come?
They're very loyal animals. They're always very pleasant in general. They're always good to have around. They can be decisive when needed. They can be protective.
Yeah.
But they have a nice mix of characteristics, positive ones I relate to.
Describe a perfect day in your life.
Be waking up early, walking the dog, being a sunny day, going to play sports for an hour or so, and then coming to the office and being challenged mentally.
Do you find that to be a regular occurrence or not enough?
Definitely, I strive to do more of that. I strive to have it more challenging and more mentally stimulating, because that's really what gets me excited.
So that's where the program abroad will make
Exactly.
a difference. And on the other side, what keeps you up at night?
When you've been able to have some successes in your life, there's always the risk of hubris, where you kind of stop listening and you start believing more in yourself and your capabilities. And that's usually the downfall of any person.
Yeah.
But it's usually that keeps me awake, that you don't want to get too confident. You don't want to get too full of yourself, that you believe in yourself more than you should.
Do you have any role models that you feel have successfully managed to grow while staying humble?
Warren Buffett, you see him, he's a very successful person, but yet very humble. And he's always questioning his decisions and thinking about them throughout and listening to all the advice that he gets. Yet he is able to make decisions.
Yeah.
But he hasn't changed. And you
Yeah.
can watch him over the course of the last 30 years, he's pretty much the same person.
Yeah, no, it is impressive. And if there was a book written about your life, what would the title be?
Just do it. Because a lot of people just think about what they'd like to do, and they assume that they need to overthink it, and they never go around to doing it.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times, I think, just do it. Just think about it, go out and do it, and There's a chance that you'll be successful if you really put passion behind it.
And if this book was turned into a movie, who would you like to play your role?
Tom Hardy.
Oh, interesting. What qualities do you admire most in people?
I admire people that are humble. I admire people that are self-motivated and people that are trustworthy.
And what qualities do you hate most in people?
I don't enjoy people that are conceited or condescending, double-faced.
What makes you laugh?
I love watching observational comedy. Yeah, I like
Like
Seinfeld, Curb Your Enthusiasm. That makes me laugh.
Do you like stand-up comedy or you?
I love it.
So that's the other side of the personality. What makes you feel most alive?
Spending time with people I love.
Doing a particular thing
No.
or just hanging out?
Hanging out.
What's the best compliment you've ever received?
When I receive compliments about a reputation at work, that's something I really resonates. That's really what lives beyond you.
Yes, and it's something you've built over your career. That's a very important thing in today's day and age. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The more you know you don't know. You need to look beyond the surface.
What makes you able to stay positive and optimistic?
I don't watch the news. I've decided to not watch the news for 15 years now.
Do you know the headlines at least?
The news that is relevant to you has وصلك. You don't have to search for it.
Interesting, but you don't read or watch the news?
Minimal. I don't actively look for news or actively start knowing current events, world events, because usually all the news that comes out is sensationalist. Never happy news. It's all very negative news. But you can easily get caught up in the negativity. It's not like you'll know it and you'll act on it. So you just know it and feel bad.
So the next chapter of Shemel's life is going to be exciting.
I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to kind of just step back and take a different perspective.
Well, we're excited. We can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you.
And what an honor.
Thank you.
Really,
Thank
I
you
learned
for
so
your time.
much.
Appreciate it.